Vice Chair Ollie Sullivan at 7 p.m. I'm going to start the webinar.
Recording in progress.
Excellent. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. And I think if we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everyone. Pardon me. Welcome to the June 23rd Planning Commission meeting. We are holding our actually second, I believe, hybrid meeting with some participants of the commission in council chambers and others who've joined virtually. This meeting is being webcast on Comcast TV channel 15 and also live streamed on the city's YouTube channel and on the city website. Ms. Matakanch, can we take roll call, please?
Commissioner Goldstein.
Present.
Commissioner Bonilla.
Present.
Commissioner Roach.
Present. And I also wanted to say that I know Commissioner Lowe is trying to get online, so she'll be here soon.
Thank you. Vice Chair Ollie Sullivan.
Present.
Chair Okenda. Absent. Thank you.
Excellent.
And I'm here, just so you know, Bridget Lowe.
Wonderful. Commissioner Lowe, good to see you. Commissioner Roche, good to see you as well remotely. All right, I think we will start now with public comment. So as a reminder, public comment is for items that are not on the agenda for tonight's meeting. The public comment section allows an opportunity to address the Planning Commission, as I mentioned, on items that are not listed on the agenda. Planning Commission welcomes comments and requested speakers present their remarks, obviously, in a respectful manner. And speakers wishing to address the commission should limit their comments to 3 minutes. So I will ask Ms. Matakanch to share her screen and provide information on how community members can participate remotely, and if there are any members of the public that would wish to speak now on, again, items not for discussion tonight, now would be your opportunity. Ms. Matakanch, is there anyone remotely?
We do not have any members wishing to speak during, or any individuals wishing to speak during the public comment period.
All right, seeing no one in the room either, we will close public comment. And I would also note for the record that Commissioner Bonilla is on. Commissioner Bonilla, good to see you, sir.
Did you guys not hear me during roll call?
Say that again.
Did you guys not hear me during roll call?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, did we what?
I think there's a problem with you hearing me. I just asked if you heard me at roll call, that's all.
Oh, no, we did not.
Yes,
Oh, we did?
yes, I
Okay,
did.
perfect. Got it.
Thank you.
That was my mistake. Maybe I didn't hear you. It's a problem with my hearing then. All right, so we will get to the first item agenda for tonight. Item number 1 on the agenda is proposed mixed-use development of 314 rental apartments, including 19 units affordable to very low and low-income households. This is a project that we've seen before, so I will we'll start the discussion. I think the first thing we'll have is staff to present to us the first agenda item.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, my name is Jeremy Lokirko, Planning Manager with the City of Hayward. I'm going to give a quick overview of the Maple and Main project before I turn it back to the Commission. This project, just for the Commission and members of the public, was continued, was originally heard at the June 9th regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission took action to continue the item to this evening. So this is a continuation of a previous item that was considered earlier this month. The project that we're looking in terms of background, as I pointed out before in our presentation, the original Maple and Main project was originally entitled in 2017, and at the time it included a conditional use permit, site plan review, a mitigated negative declaration with a mitigation monitoring and reporting program. And that project back in 2017 included about 240 residential units, about 5,500 square feet of retail space, and there was an intent to redevelop and remodel a four-story medical office building on site. After that deal, that potential tenant fell through. That medical office building fell into a state of blight and code compliance issues, and was later demolished in 2019 by the applicant and through the cooperation with City of Hayward. The project, and then later in 2019, in addition to the medical building coming down, the city adopted the downtown specific plan, the development code, and related environmental impact report, which was the now regulating plan for the updated Maple and Main project. The current project that you have before you this evening was originally submitted in September of 2020, and because of the changes in the adoption of the new development code, the entitlements changed to require a major site plan review, administrative use permit, and addendum to the previously adopted ISMND for the analysis that was previously done. In addition, the applicant submitted a density bonus application in March of this year requesting a concession and waiver. The Planning Commission action we're looking that would include under consideration this evening, a major site plan review, and that's because the project site itself is in excess of 3 acres in size. Administrative use permit is required for commercial spaces that are less than 10,000 square feet in the downtown code area. There is a concession request for a reduction of the commercial ceiling height requirement, and there's a waiver request for exceeding the line building width requirement in the downtown code. And as I previously mentioned, much of the original environmental analysis is still relevant, and the updated project was analyzed against the previously adopted ISMND, and it was determined that an addendum would be the appropriate course of environmental review for this project. Quick summary, we have 2 parcels in this development plan, totaling nearly 4 acres in size. There is one 5-story residential building, and that's the main building that contains the majority of the units. There's a 4-story mixed-use building. In total, 314 residential units that provides a variety of studio 1, 2, and 3-bedroom floor plans. Each unit contains several project amenities, including private open space balcony areas. The project itself also includes a suite of quite a few public amenities and community amenities, including a pool, a spa, barbecue area, fitness center, and clubhouse. And in total, between the courtyard areas and the private open space areas, the applicant is proposing nearly 24,000 square feet of combined public and private open space. Of the 314 units, 19 are proposed to be dedicated for affordable. 16 of those would be for very low-income households, and 3 would be for very low households, which does in fact exceed the affordable housing ordinance requirements. In addition to that, the applicant has enlarged the amount of square footage for the commercial space that was originally envisioned from 5,500 up to 7,100, and they've also maintained a multi-level parking garage with 422 parking spaces that will include EV charging station, EV charging spaces, bicycle spaces, and motorcycle spaces, as well as several ADA spaces. There are several other project components. Just to note real quickly here, there's some trees that are proposed to be removed, but in exchange for those trees that are proposed to come out, the applicant is proposing 77 new trees around the project site and along the street frontages, including nearly 600 new shrubs, ground covers, and hundreds of other vines. I think that says wines, but I guarantee you I think it's supposed to be vines. In addition, there are numerous site and frontage improvements, including new site landscaping, lighting, and bioretention areas that are compliant with C3 requirements. They're adding new bike lanes on McKeever, which currently don't exist. They're going to add new separated Class 4 bike lane on Main Street, as well as add some enhanced pedestrian improvements that include new curb, gutter, and sidewalk along the street frontages. And as part of the original project and as being committed to by the current applicant, the project is incorporating a parking management plan and a transportation demand management plan. And that's all with the intent to not only mitigate potential vehicle trips associated with the project, but also to provide alternate modes of transportation for residents that live in the project and around the vicinity. There's a couple of renderings, various perspectives from Maple Court, Main Street, and at the corner of Maple and McKeever that I just showed very quickly here. And then getting into, again, the CEQA component here. The council did approve the original document in 2017. Per CEQA section 15164, the city is required to do an analysis and when it's deemed to be feasible, to do an addendum, which in this case it was found to be the appropriate environmental review document. The addendum itself does not require circulation for public review, but it is attached to the original mitigated negative declaration, which the Planning Commission does have included as part of their packet. There has been no substantial change in either the project or the information that was provided that would warrant further or expanded additional review. And staff did determine, following adoption of new VMT requirements, that the project, given the fact that they are including a parking management plan and a transportation demand management plan, that those two efforts would sufficiently reduce any potential impacts to a level of less than significant, and therefore no additional VMT analysis is required. In addition, the adopted IS and MND did identify all potential impacts and mitigation measures that would be resulting from the project, and have determined that with mitigation, all of those impacts could be reduced to less than significant. Staff does confirm that the project does comply with CEQA and is subject to the mitigation plan that was included as part of that document. There has been one subsequent change per the applicant's request since the Planning Commission saw this project 2 weeks ago. That specific change is being highlighted in red here. The applicant, in an attempt to provide an enhanced community benefit, has worked with the Prospect Hill Neighborhood Association and agreed to contribute $10,000 to the building prior to the building permit issuance, and that is intended to be used to improve and maintain the existing city-owned parcel at Hazel and Main Street, which is currently being used by the neighborhood as an open space area and community garden. This request, again, was added at the applicant's request, and it will be updated as part of condition number 26 in attachment 3, which are the conditions of approval. With that, staff concludes the presentation. We are recommending the Planning Commission approve the project as conditioned and modified for the entitlements that are listed on the screen here. The project is subject to a 10-day appeal period, but following that, the project would become eligible to apply for grading and site and building permits immediately thereafter. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions. In addition, the applicant is here, as well as they have several of their team members, their project team members, that are able to answer any questions. The applicant can also provide an update on any other subsequent conversations that have happened following the last Planning Commission discussion earlier this month. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Mr. Gold, did you want to speak on the project at all? I know you spoke last time it was presented. If there's anything else you'd like to update us on, or if not, that's fine. Please. Yes.
Hi, Amit Goel, the applicant. So on the taking into consideration, community interests and being a good team player with the community, we worked very closely with labor and entered into labor agreements with the various MEP unions, and proud to work with them and be part of your community, and we hope that we earn your support. Sure.
Thank you. At this point, we'll go to commissioner questions. Do any of I guess we'll start with my colleagues who are remote. If there's questions they'd like to raise, I saw Commissioner Roche's hand first. So if Commissioner Roche, if you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Chair, or Chair. You're Chair tonight, right? Is that what I say? Yeah. Well, some of my questions have been answered tonight, so thank you, Mr. Goel, and thank you. Sorry. I keep being unmuted or muted. Okay, there I'm okay. I'm not sure why I keep getting kicked into mute. Can you hear me?
Ms. Mataconch, do I have any control? No, okay. Commissioner Roche,
Okay,
go ahead.
I'll try again. I'll try again. It kept going back to me.
She can hold spacebar.
User error. I had my notepad on the space bar. Apologize. Sorry. So a lot of my questions were already answered. So I appreciate Mr. Goel's work on this and staff's work and some of the updates that we heard tonight. I just wanted to ask a couple other things. There were some concerns from one of the neighbors. I think that I'm trying to look. It was about the people that are actually on the block and a concern about a garbage bin location and sort of a fire lane entrance right next to the property. And I was wondering if you've seen this letter and has there been any response to that? Is there some way we can sort of lessen the effect of this for them? Like I said, so like the garbage bins are not right in front of their property. Can Mr. Goel or staff potentially answer that?
Jeremy, do you have any guidance on that location or any requirements as such?
Yeah, I'll let the applicant respond to the placement of that. Part of the requirement for the placement of the garbage area was to allow the vehicles along that internal drive area that connects McKeever and Maple to have access to the trash area. I don't know if there's any other thoughts specifically from the architect or the applicant in terms of response to that.
Can you hear this? My name is Vince Chupka. I'm with Humphreys and Partners Architects.
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. The one thing I would point out is that trash enclosure is not a trash storage area. It's for the pickup on pickup days. So each of the buildings actually has trash storage inside of it. The larger building has two trash storage spaces within inside. They're fed by chutes, so all the residents actually go into a small room. They feed the trash down into a chute, and it's stored on the ground level of the parking structure. The smaller building has a similar a space that's down by the elevator lobbies, and then it has a pair of doors that opens up to the outside. So the concept, which is similar to most projects of this type, is that on trash day, these bins will be rolled out from these two structures and then just staged for the trash trucks to pick up. So that outdoor space is not intended to be a storage area. It's only meant for staging on pickup day. We are proposing to go ahead and put up, because my understanding is the walls were taken down or the fences were taken down on those two neighboring properties. So the team has just talked about it and talked about putting up a masonry wall, and we could talk about what the height of it is. I had suggested like a 6-foot wall. I mean, at some point the wall gets pretty tall up against the single family house. They might not like it to be too tall, but it's a better wall than any other type of fence that was currently there or was previously there in terms of blocking sound, the sound and stuff. So that was kind of our suggestion.
Okay, so it sounds like you're continuing to work with those neighbors. I think that's my biggest question, is that they're obviously, like they say, the only two houses on the block where you're going to be building this. Excuse me, and that you would continue to work with them to make this livable for them.
Yes, I think that's our client's intent.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure we answered that. And then the other question I had, I'm just sort of answering some of the community concerns. There was also the question about some of the two inconsistencies in the arborist report, and if that's been addressed, or I understand the idea of sort of keeping old growth trees versus new trees, and just wondering if you had any answer to that question as well.
Commissioner Roche, we do have our arborist here this evening from Bartlett Tree Service. Daria, if you're there, if you could, Ms. Farrar, if you could speak and answer that question.
Yeah, and I think we talked a little bit about it last time, but it sounds like there's sort of renewed details about the concerns. So yeah, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
No worries. I actually didn't hear the question. Can you restate the question? I apologize.
Yeah, well, I'm actually just sort of taking, it was a neighbor's concern. It was a similar to concern to what we talked about last time, but they kind of went back through it. And so maybe you didn't read that report. It was
Oh, I did.
Okay.
The PowerPoint that was sent. Yes, I did read that.
So yeah, so I'm actually just asking you to sort of talk about that.
Oh, sure. No worries.
Answer their concerns in the letter, so I can understand what, is this really a concern and what your answer to it is.
For sure. So as a part of the report, the city of Hayward does require the arborist to provide a calculation sheet. If you would like for me to put that up on the screen, I can share my screen and do that. But essentially,
that's okay. I mean, I'm not sure that it would make as much sense to me. I kind of wanted to make sure we were addressing the concerns that were in that letter.
For sure. So the first question about the appraised value of a tree and why one tree was significantly higher than another tree that appeared to be a good quality species was really the heart of the question, I think. So on the appraisal calculation table, it can be a little bit confusing, but there's a column that indicates that it says the calculated value of the tree. So that just takes into account the species and the size of the tree. And then once you get to that sort of appraised calculated value, you basically start subtracting for other factors that are present in the tree. So like where the tree is located and what condition the tree is in, and all of that goes into the calculation. And so values can change dramatically when you start taking into account their condition and their location, value, et cetera. I will note that this appraisal was based on the 9th edition, and there is a newer version. If and when we ever redo this arborist report, we would use the most recent version. However, the city of Hayward did accept it and does accept it based on the timeframe that the work was performed in. So there were some other questions about silvacells and such. In my experience, it's best if you install silvacells underneath sidewalk or structural soil around new trees and not existing trees. There's a lot of evidence, and really just my own experience, that installing something like structural sidewalk or silvacells in an existing area of a tree, it just really doesn't help the tree because so much root pruning needs to be done in order to install it. And I think in some of the pictures you can see kind of how extensive that excavation needs to be in order to get down into the root area, which basically removes, 90% of the root ball.
Okay. I think I understand. I just kind of wanted a little explanation so I could understand that, and perhaps the neighbor who was concerned about it, I think they might talk about it later too. So I appreciate it. Yeah. So as far as your concern is concerned, it's not really inconsistencies in the report. It's different ways they're evaluated, and then, like you said, values are deducted based on different factors for the tree.
Yeah, and I'm happy to dive deep with whomever would like to dive deep on that particular point with me. Appraisal, I've taken. I forgot what the qualification is. I'm qualified as a tree appraiser, so I have a pretty good understanding of the appraisal methods, and would be happy to go through it on a sort of case-by-case basis. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for answering that. Thank you. I think I think that answers my concerns on the tree. And then the other question I had to do with the Prospect Neighborhood Association, and just wondering, Mr. Goel, did you continue to have conversations with them, and have you, have their concerns been more allayed at this point? I'm just kind of wondering where that is. If you.
Sure.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is David Bowlby, and I am a consultant working on the project. And I've had many interfaces and meetings with the Prospect Neighborhood Association. And as it relates to the issues and concerns that they brought up in the past, that's partly why we ended up dedicating specific funds towards the community garden, given that our park fees as a condition we asked that be considered through this process, working with HARD and the city itself. We implemented a dog run on site. That was a concern that the neighbors had, that our animals would want to venture further off site. Rather, this is an opportunity to have them there. The issue of traffic and parking, walked extensively through the neighbors with our condition of approval to point out to them that we have various steps through our TDM plan to deal with that, all the way to the ultimate level of permits, if indeed through the evaluation that wouldn't be necessary, and hopefully that will not be the case. In turn, I think the neighborhood, given the conversations having had with the group, that a permit might be something that they even would consider further down along the line. And then as far as the density, again, further conversations we had with the neighborhood, that's probably a conversation left for another time as for policy and direction for the city. This was the specific plan, and this is the direction and the policy that both the Planning Commission and the Council wanted to see have happen. So we've had lots of discussions, and I understand that the neighborhood is changing, and there are impacts, and we're doing all we can to ensure that our project is going to be a part of that community of fabric with as minimal impact as possible. And I think working with staff, we've done a great job through those conditions of approval.
Thank you. That's
yes.
really helpful. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. And thank you. My last question was about labor, and the applicant had satisfied that question. So thank you. That's all. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Roche. Commissioner Bonilla?
Thank you. My questions were initially around community outreach as well, but those have been addressed. I just encourage the applicant to continue to meet with the community and make sure that their voice is being incorporated, especially as we start looking at walls and other things that are going to be built there. Just for clarification, the $10,000 contribution, what is that going to be used for again? I think I missed that.
Thank you, Commissioner. David Bowlby for the record. Yes, the reason that we ended up wanting to specifically donate to the community park, because it's a separate entity. It's a city-owned parcel, so it has nothing to do with HARD itself, and we wanted to ensure that we were offering the neighborhood and the association an ability directly funds that they can put toward the further improvement of the community garden.
Excellent. So what does the city then plan to do with that money, Jeremy?
Jeremy, can you answer?
Well, that would be at the point when the condition was added very specifically tied to that park. It would be up to the city council to make a determination specifically on what improvements and how that money would be spent. Just as a reminder, that parcel is not a HARD maintained parcel. It is a vacant city-owned parcel that the Prospect Hill neighborhood has been working with the community on and trying to improve that, to make that a very welcoming and accommodating open space where residents of the neighborhood can garden. And so I think to the degree that the council has recognized the importance of maintaining this and has allowed and encouraged Prospect Hill to continue to be a partner in maintaining that space and creating a nice community space, I think this contribution will further support that initiative.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonilla. My colleagues to my right, do we have any questions for city staff? Commissioner Stevens, no? Commissioner Goldstein, perfect. I think like a lot of us, I had some questions on some of the issues that were raised previously, and it sounds like the majority of them have been resolved, so no additional questions for me at this time. I think barring any additional questions, we'll open it up for public comment. And we can start with folks in the room. Ms. Matakansh, can you?
I do not have any speaker cards for individuals to speak from the council chambers, but there is a Zoom participant.
Okay, I do think we have at least one participant in the room if you'd like to provide comment. And again, I would just ask for both Zoom participants and in-person participants to limit the comments to 3 minutes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Commissioners. My name is Vince Segru, and I'm here proudly standing in front of you tonight representing nearly 1,000 Hayward residents who work for the mechanical craft unions. That's the Sheet Metal Workers, the UA 342, IBW 595, and Sprinkler Fitters 483. We are proud of the project in front of you, and we want to commend the developer, Amit Goel. He has worked very hard to partner with us, and we're very excited to say that we're going to be a part of this project. We think the vision for this project is great, and we thank all of the advocacy both on the Planning Commission and in the City of Hayward, and we really look forward to getting this project through, so please approve this tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Barring any additional in-person comments, Ms. Montecalcio, it looks like we have 4 speakers remotely, if I'm reading this correctly.
Presently, there's 2 that are raising their hand.
Okay, perfect. Why don't we go ahead and allow them to speak?
Mr. John Dalrymple.
Mr. Dalrymple, are you there? Give you a moment in case you're trying to unmute. All right, why don't we go ahead and...
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioners. First, I want to thank you, the Commissioners, and the City Council for how you've approached this project and approaching the downtown, the projects coming into the downtown plan. As others begin to come towards you, you've had a big vision for downtown and a big vision for what kind of benefits you bring to the community. Because of 2 weeks ago, obviously it was a little bit challenging with us and the developer, but it's not unusual. I mean, sometimes developers coming into a community, we go through a period of trying to get to know each other, trying to make each other feel comfortable. And I have to say, I just want to get more what Vince was saying in terms of that work was really done. I think that Amit really stepped up and tried to hear what we're saying, hear what the community needs around these workforce community benefits, and we do have an agreement. And I think that gives us the city now has confidence that the conditions that were placed on this related to that are going to be fulfilled. And it's just so we didn't have too many folks come and tell their story, but this will change people's lives. This will mean that somebody coming, formerly incarcerated, coming out into the community, we don't have any check the box. It creates more opportunities for folks like that who want to change their lives. It gives us the opportunity to open up our apprenticeship programs and broader and bring more people in because Amit did the right thing. For folks who are veterans returning, we know the struggles they have coming into a community. The trades is a unique place for folks coming into, from the armed services coming back into civilian life as a place where they can, and many times it is the only kind of environment where they feel like they can, they feel comfortable, they can contribute. So lives will be changed by this. And I just want to, again, commend the developer, commend you and the City Council, and we look forward to helping to build this project. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Looks like we have Ms. Ro Aguilar.
Can you hear me?
Indeed, yes, Ms. Montecalcio, if we can reset our public speaker timer, if you don't mind. Just give us one moment, Ms. Aguilar. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I too want to compliment the developer and the Planning Commission and the staff on this exemplary infill rental development near transit. I wish we could have more of these in the city. I really think that this is an excellent development, support it fully. I want to compliment the developer for using the city's affordable housing code to the max and actually exceeding it to get the most affordable units that would be required. And and using the density bonus for on-site affordable housing, mixed family sizes. So that is another plus here with studios all the way up to, I guess, 3 bedrooms. Now, what can we learn from this development? Because I can't let this go. It's breaking my heart that there's 314 units here. Only 16 are affordable out of 314 units. Let that sit in your minds. How desperate we are for low income, and we only have 16 because that's all the city requires. That's it. RENA, on our RENA tally, 58, we're lacking 58%. We are only 58% of goal for very low. So 16 more, when we could have had more maybe, is not, it's not that hopeful. So I want to make a little proposal that you've heard before. The city is currently revising the affordable housing ordinance and has the opportunity now to revise the language which governs the percentage of low and very low units included in a development. The Planning Commission needs to recommend that we raise the percentage from 6% to at least 15% or more and require on-the-ground units, not the option of in lieu fees in any development over 20 units. The 15% inclusionary housing requirement should apply to all types of housing, single family, townhouses, multifamily. As you know, the inclusionary single family owner occupied housing is particularly important, even critical in growing and strengthening the middle class. Let's lead and let's do our part. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aguilar. And I believe we have one more speaker, Pekan Gupta, if you'd like to unmute yourself and address the commission.
Good evening, Chair. Can you hear me?
Indeed, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks to Commissioner Roche for bringing up the question. I think most of my questions were answered by the arborist here. I just have 2 comments to make to the arborist and the developer. Firstly, thank you for donating $10,000 to the city park, because as per my calculation as well, if the appraisal value would have shifted around, it would be something around that park, and city would have lost that money. Therefore, I put that dollar amount in the first slide. What I want to specifically focus everyone's attention is on the data in slide 4, which I have presented. It is from city of Palo Alto, which is where some of my friends have worked. I have many years of experience working with California state parks and different sets of arborists. So I collected that data from city of Palo Alto. There is a Google Drive link. If you click on that, there are 23 different designs, sidewalk designs, through which you can save large existing trees. And I'm specifically saying existing trees, not the new trees, because if you read the report, it's multi-pages. There are 23 different set of proposals and designs. It's hard for me to understand that arborist report does not even cover a single such example. Most of the arborist reports which I have read through in my past start with proposals which try to preserve the tree, and if none of them work, yes, you can remove the tree. In this proposal, there is no option of preserving a tree, or no proposal. So if there is a way, and this is again as a goodwill gesture from the developer, if there's a way you can revise the arborist report and add proposals where you can save certain trees by different mechanisms and proposals given in the document which I have attached, please do so. I do not want to hold the decision here, but it would be good both for the developer and the city council to use this as an example for future development. I think that's all I have to say in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Matakanch, do you see anyone else with raised hands? Is anyone else looking to speak?
No, Vice Chair, there are no more speakers.
All right, then we'll go ahead and move on to commission comments. Why don't we go ahead and start with my colleagues remotely.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
To close the public hearing.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. We will, at this point, close public hearing. Thank you, sir. And move on to commissioner discussion. And we'll start with our commissioners that are joining remotely. If I put up my screen here, I should be able to see. Why don't we go ahead and start with Commissioner Lowe?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that I'm really, really pleased and excited that the applicant worked so well with the local unions and really also worked very well with the surrounding neighborhood in trying to resolve the issues and some of the things that people were concerned about. I know not everything was perfect and not everything has happened perfectly, but I mean, we really couldn't ask for better. I'm glad we gave them the 2 weeks to work together, and I'm glad everyone did come together to resolve these issues. So I personally am thrilled about this project. I think that it is a good project, and I'm ready to make a motion. So I move that we approve the project.
Looks like we have a motion and a second.
I'll second. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think
Yep,
for a second I
that's
heard was Commissioner Stevens.
Yep, that's fine.
Perfect. Commissioner Lowe, do you have any additional comments, or was that it?
That's it.
Perfect. Thank you. Commissioner Bonilla.
Thank you. I too am pretty excited about this project. I appreciate the agreement that was reached with labor. I, like Ms. Aguilar, also, I think the affordable housing is a joke. I appreciate the fact that it's met the requirement and it exceeded the requirement, but the requirement's too low. 315 units, 16 being affordable, it's not the numbers we're looking for. I appreciate, that we, like I said, met the requirement, exceeded it, but I want to continue to encourage developers coming to Hayward to even do more and to push for higher and for us to lead the way in this space. But outside of that, I'll be supporting this project as well, because I do think it's a good project and it's much needed for our community. I also appreciate the community input, and I continue to encourage the community input as this project gets refined and built. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonilla. Commissioner Roche?
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think last time we sort of agreed that this was a project that everybody wanted to see built. And I think it's all the better now because the developer took the time to listen to our concerns and listen and talk with local labor and the local neighborhood association. And I'm so pleased because I feel like we have a really good project this evening, and I'm looking forward to approving it. I agree with my other commissioners. I mean, the affordable housing ordinance is something we need to continue to work on, but I'm glad to see that this developer is exceeding the current requirement. And I think at this point, that's all we can ask, and we need to just keep pushing that one going forward. I was also just really, really glad to see the community benefit increase over the last 2 weeks. I think that's really helpful. And my recommendation is that, it sounds like you're doing good. You're working well with the neighbors and communicating with them when they have concerns. And I just encourage you to continue to do that because, obviously that's going to be important going forward. And then keeping, and monitoring the traffic and, and taking the TDM program seriously so that changes can be made or ramped up as people move into the building in the future and, and those real world concerns become apparent. So thank you, everyone, for your hard work on this project, and I will be supporting the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Roche. We'll move to in the room here. Please, Commissioner Goldstein.
Yeah, I was giving you hand signals all night.
I think everyone was gunning to make that motion. I know. I figured I would start with our Zoom colleagues and then finish off the discussion in here.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. So here's the thing. First of all, congratulations. I am so delighted that you fellows were able to work everything out, because this is a fantastic project. It's beautiful. It's needed. I can't say enough about it, honestly. You guys have really brought it together. Now, I just got to say that above all else, what we like here in Hayward are good citizens, people who come with a heart for the community. And most of the time, nearly all the time, actually, the developers and the unions meet our estimation of that bar. And sometimes conversation breaks down. So a couple of things about that. Congratulations on working through the hard work to come to an agreement. The unions have really been standout, in case you're wondering why so many of us up here talk about the unions. They have done things for the city of Hayward, bent over backwards to be accommodating to the city and the community, helping us through rough financial times, helping us meet building goals. I mean, the list goes on and on. And your ability to come to an agreement on prevailing wages makes it possible for them, the men and women that work hard in this community. We're talking about 1,000 people on this project. Prevailing wages makes it possible for them to contribute back to the community by volunteering at the schools, by showing up on our cleanup days, by coaching Little League and soccer games and so forth. So it's a big deal to us. They want to, they're able to, and you make that possible. So thank you. We really do appreciate that. Thank you. Making it local labor means that there are people that don't have to commute for 2 hours or longer to go find a job at prevailing wages. So thank you. I appreciate that. And the apprenticeship programs make it possible for people who maybe in their lives have suffered some setbacks and rough times, whether they're young guys, 18 years old, going into the unions, or they're guys that are fresh coming out of prison at 30 years, have paid their debt to society. No one else is going to hire them. Let's be real about that, but the unions do, because they need good workers, and they know that this is an opportunity to turn their lives around. You make that possible. So thank you, and thank you for standing up for what's right. As to Commissioner Bonilla's comment, that was no reflection on you guys. The percentage of homes, that's on us. That's on planning commissioners and city council to figure out the right formula that's going to work. We don't want to overburden our developers and scare them away, but we do have big goals to meet for housing. People need housing. You know, for me, what that means, and I think what it means for the unions and the other folks that live here in the community, is that if we have housing to meet the need, that means that my kids and yours get to grow old with us here in the same community, and they're not being forced hours apart. So thank you for taking that part on, and we'll be having further discussions about that percentage, I guess, later. But again, thank you. Obviously, I will be supporting this project. Thank you.
Well, as the chair tonight, I guess I have the last word on this. I should say I'm surprised, but also pleased that our meeting, our first item agenda, has gone by so quickly. I think we're all expecting perhaps more robust discussion. I actually invited my niece and my dad to come and to see an exciting meeting, and we're not able to give that to them, which is good in this case. So, to that point, as I mentioned last time that we heard this item, I was very excited about the project. Thought it looked great. I think this is a wonderful project. It's going to continue to move us forward as a city. we're just waiting for that last little piece, right? And if we get a little bit of icing on the cake, and I am thrilled that we're able to get that icing on the cake here. First off, I want to thank city staff for all of their monumental work on this project. I know it's been years and years and years of efforts and stalled efforts, and so I know this is a huge endeavor. And so thank you to city staff for all your work on this and on making it this far in the process. Also wanted to obviously thank the applicant. I know that there are business realities at play that you have to address, and the market is quickly turning on us. And so your willingness to pause for a moment with us and to have those final discussions, I think, have yielded what is going to be a great benefit for the broader community. And I hope you recognize that and appreciate what you're able to support in the community. And we appreciate that and we recognize that. So thank you for sticking with us and working on this project. And we're looking forward to continuing to work with you. And then finally, on the labor front, obviously labor was very vocal and as a community member in this process. And I want to thank them for their advocacy, right? Without that dogged advocacy on the part of labor, really standing up for Hayward residents, for Hayward families, for good jobs in the community. That's what we need. That's what we're looking for. And the fact that they stood up here, that they came and spoke, that they put in the time and effort is something that they should be proud of. And I want to thank them for that work. And I think at the end of the day, we're all going to benefit from a much better project that benefits the community as it's being built and benefits the community over the long term as folks start to move in here. So I'm very excited about this project, as I think the rest of my commissioners are. I'm excited that we're moving forward in harmony, and it was not lost on me that both parties here, our developer and our union representatives, shook hands earlier. And so I look forward to them shaking hands when we complete this project and we cut the ribbon on it. And I am obviously in support and look forward to supporting this project. So thank you, everyone, for the work. Barring any other additional comments or raised hands on Zoom, which I don't see, Ms. Motakant, can we call for a vote?
Can I just ask for just a clarification on the motion for Commissioner Lowe? The motion, assuming it includes the 3 changes that staff and the applicant have requested related to the conditions of approval, 2 of them, actually 3 of them that were included before, and then the one additionally this evening?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification, Jeremy.
Commissioner Goldstein?
Yes.
Commissioner Bonilla Jr.?
Yes.
Commissioner Roach?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Lowe?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ali Sullivan?
Aye.
Thank you.
I believe the motion passed 6-0. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for the efforts and the discussion on that project.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. All right, we will move on to our item number 2 on the agenda. It is a work session, so there's obviously no vote that'll take place on this item, but we will have an opportunity for public comment. So the second item is a work session on the Housing Resources Sites Inventory and Housing Plan for the 2023-2031 housing element. And I believe staff has a presentation that they will share with us remotely. Staff might have expected to be presenting later, huh?
Chair, we can't hear this. We can't hear the staff speaker.
Yeah, I think we're still getting staff the presentation online. We haven't started yet. Bear with us for a moment here. Jeremy, are you texting to check in? Leah's on, correct?
Hello?
There we go.
Can someone hear me? Yes?
Yes, yeah. Now we can hear you.
Here we go. Okay. Go. Always an adventure. Okay.
First being adventure.
Thank you so much for bearing with me. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this will work. 1 second. Share screen. And show beginning. And if I could just hear a verbal yes, if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I can't see you, meaning if anything is going awry, I'm stuck on one word looking really funny, please just let me know that that's happening verbally because I can't see you guys. So good evening, Chair Ollie Sullivan tonight and planning commissioners. It is so exciting to be here to present an update to the housing element. As you know, we started this work a year ago when we hired Rincon Consultants to head up an update to the housing element, climate action plan, safety element, and to prepare an environmental justice element for the city of Hayward. We sort of presented a general housing element 101 back in October at a joint session. And I'm joined here tonight by Darcy Kremen and Brenna Weatherby from the Rincon team, who've been instrumental in developing a creative, holistic, and hopefully compliant draft housing element. So a month ago, environmental services staff presented on progress on the climate action plan and environmental justice element. And tonight I'm presenting on a couple of key chapters of the housing element update. And specifically what we're going to talk about tonight are the sites inventory to show how the city can accommodate a regional housing need allocation, and the housing plan, which contains goals, policies, and actions for the next 8-year housing element cycle. The purpose of this work session is to present these draft materials to you, answer questions, and take comments. So very briefly, what is a housing element? It's statutorily required. It's an element of the general plan. It must be updated every 8 years, unlike the rest of the general plan elements. And it also must be approved by the State Department of Housing and Community Development. The 8-year cycle coincides with the regional housing needs allocation, which is handed down from the state to the councils of governments throughout California, and then the councils of governments. Ours is the Association of Bay Area Governments, hands out the allocation based on complex sort of, calculations based on, wanting to locate near jobs, wanting to locate in transit areas, and in this cycle also putting a heavy weight on questions of equity and access. Our RHNA allocation went up less than 20% from the last housing element cycle, but some other jurisdictions did experience a significant increase, well over in the hundreds of percent increases. So the housing element is composed of many different chapters, but tonight we're going to provide an update on a few different elements of the housing element. One, we're going to talk briefly about public participation to date. Touch very briefly on housing needs, just to set up sort of some of the findings, and so you can see how and why we're planning some of the actions in the housing plan. We're going to talk about the resources and inventory, and then the housing plan. So on the topic of public participation, we sort of outlined this in the staff report to you, but we've really made a huge effort to get into the community and to meet people where they are in order to provide opportunities to learn about the housing element, to learn about housing, to learn about the history of Hayward, and to provide feedback to staff. We initially started out with a project website, and our project website contains a page that's learn more, and it contains articles, it contains YouTube videos, and explainers on what is zoning, what is redlining, what it has, what is the history of, Kelly Hill and different communities in the city of Hayward over time. And it also has like how to calculate your carbon footprint, or how to, it has lots of information about environmental justice in general, and then specifically in the Bay Area. And so I want to say that that was something that we put a lot of effort into. The city also created a mobile gallery that was at the library and at City Hall. We took it to BART. We've taken it to NAACP meetings. We've taken it to, I took it to a Hayward Promise neighborhood meeting. So we've used this gallery, and it contains sort of big posters on housing, environmental justice, climate action, safety, and then the history of Hayward. And they were created both in English and Spanish. And so we've taken them all over the city. We conducted a social media campaign where we had a story and asked people to write in about 3 words that describe their housing. And that was really intended to link this sort of big policy document that the city is working on, this long range plan that most people, what does it mean to live here? What does it mean to live in your house? What does it mean to be in your community, on your street? And so we really got people sort of writing in, and you can see some of the story responses on the right-hand side of the screen. We got out into the community and handed out flyers at grocery stores, laundromats, BART, farmers market, and other locations. We also mailed flyers to all of the Hayward households. We've held focus groups and attended community events. We had a housing survey in English, Spanish, and Chinese, and prizes for participation. We conducted a housing site simulation activity. We've held community workshops on environmental justice and climate action. We are holding a housing element community meeting in July following the release of the draft. And then we did partner with Chabot Community College to interview about 400 Hayward residents about their lived experiences around housing, segregation, pollution, and it was really informative. So here is a brief picture of us out at a school with our posters, and people were invited to write down their thoughts and to post them on the posters directly. And then here's a map showing all those interviews that were conducted by the Chabot students. And as you can see, each of these yellow little blue icons represents a person that was interviewed. They covered the entire city. You know, they have people in the hills, they have people out almost in the industrial area, south, north, downtown, Mission Boulevard, all over the place. So our GIS team, who are amazing, are turning this into a sort of web page that you and HCD folks are going to be able to go to and read sort of the interview details and filter by different things like age or ethnicity or living situation, you know, single family home. And so these students really made an effort and were able to reach a huge segment of the community, you know, people that are homeless to people who've owned their homes for 40 years and everything in between. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Brenna Weatherby to talk about housing needs.
Thank you, Leah. Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. Next slide. I want to talk a little bit about housing needs, give you some insight into some of the findings of the socioeconomic and population trends that we've taken a look at. All of these things need to be examined as part of the housing element to really get a sense of what the housing need is in the community at this point in time. So looking at socioeconomic data as well as housing stock characteristics, such as age of the housing stock, trends in construction, all of that really help to form the housing needs assessment in the housing element, which can then help to tell a city, you know, what things they need to address through programs and policies that may help promote residential development in the coming years. So as you take a look here on your screen, a couple of takeaways from the population demographics that we looked at. Hayward has a diversified population. You can see here the graph on the left-hand of your screen. Majority of the, well, I will say the entire city is very diverse, with the Hispanic Latino population at 40% making up the majority population in the city. The population is also aging, and that can sometimes lend to different types of housing needs. Seniors often need one-story units, or we need to look at maybe not such dense multifamily units, as sometimes the aging population can have a harder time getting around and getting up flights of stairs. So it's just something to consider when you're looking at housing in a city. Also on employment trends, we are seeing that the city's manufacturing sector has decreased since the last time the housing element was put together, while on the other side, the education and health services sector has increased. So those are the employment trends that we're seeing right now in this point in time in the city. Next slide. I also mentioned taking a look at housing stock characteristics and affordability of the housing units in the city of Hayward. So as far as the housing stock is concerned, we have found that between the years 2000 and 2019, the number of housing units in the city of Hayward grew by 9%, while the total population grew by 18%. Single person households increased by 16% over the past 9 years, while those who are married with children declined by approximately 13% over the past 9 years. And finally, concerning housing affordability, what we're finding is that approximately 50% of renters are cost burdened, while approximately 30% of owners are cost burdened. So it is difficult to afford a home in the city of Hayward, but that is a trend that we do see throughout the entire Bay Area. Now I'll mention here also the housing units by year. You'll see that graphic on your screen. A majority of the units in the city of Hayward were built prior to 1999. So we often see that when the housing stock is 30 years or older, that we start to see could sometimes be some deferred maintenance, but there's definitely some repairs and refurbishment that need to occur. And especially when that housing stock hits 50 years or older, we oftentimes see deferred maintenance and quite a bit more rehabilitation that needs to take place on those particular units in order to bring them up to current codes and standards as livable units. Next slide. So I gave a little bit of an insight as to what we're seeing into housing needs. I'll jump into now talking a little bit about the city's RHNA and the site inventory that has been put together, and how the trends that we're seeing with the housing needs have played into what were the sites that we have identified. Next slide. So first off, this graphic represents the RHNA allocation for the city of Hayward. You'll see that 46% of the units that have been assigned in the sixth cycle are to be allocated to households that are above moderate income category. So that means that that household earns 120% more of the area median income. You see here that the area median income for Alameda County is $142,800. So the majority of the units to be accommodated with the sixth cycle housing element are for those that make 120% or more of that area median income. And when I say those that make that, it's a household number. You'll see that 18% has been attributed to the moderate income category, while an additional 13, 12, and then 12%. So those are the low, very low, and extremely low income categories. Oftentimes you'll see them comprised into the lower income category. And that's how those three are grouped together within the housing element itself. But there are certain portions of the housing element where you have to address those income categories separately. So we have broken them out for you here as well. Next slide. So on your screen now, you'll see the RHNA breakdown for the city of Hayward. So this graphically or in table format shows the site inventory that we have put together for the city for the sixth cycle housing element. So at the top, you'll see the total RHNA allocation, 1,692 units attributed to the lower income category that I mentioned, 817 towards the moderate income category, and then that larger percentage, 2,117 to the above moderate income category. So the total RHNA that has to be accommodated is 4,624 units. So this is the total number of sites that the city has to find capacity for to be constructed over the next 8 years. It does not mean that all of these units will be constructed or that any single number are going to come on at any one time. The city just has to show that there is capacity for those units. So when we put together a site inventory, the first thing that we do is take a look at planned and approved units. You also see them referred to as pending or approved projects. They're also called pipeline projects. So these are units that are in the pipeline. So they have either been approved by City Council and not yet constructed, City Council or Planning Commission, or they have been planned, meaning that there's an application on file and the city can reasonably expect them to be constructed within the next 8-year planning period. Those units come right off the top because they are in that pipeline and it can be assumed that they will be constructed. So when you take that total off, I won't go through the breakdown, but when you take the total off, it's a total of almost 1,900 units. So that comes right off the top of the RHNA allocation. Next, we take a look at ADUs that are anticipated to be constructed. So the total number of ADUs that the city believes will be constructed over the next 8 years is 320. This is based on current trends. So HCD really likes to see hard data on what a city is seeing when it comes to ADUs. So how many ADUs have been constructed over the past 3 years? So they're really looking at that data from 2019, 2020, and 2021 to come to this number of what the city expects to see. For the ABAG region, there have been some data that's been put out regarding affordability of ADU units as well. So that's why you'll see these units broken out into the various categories because of that data that has been put out and widely accepted by HCD for the region. Sorry. Now, once we take a look at the pipeline projects as well as the ADUs, there's still a remaining RHNA of about 2,400 units. So the city needs to find capacity for those remaining 2,400 units within the city. So in taking a look at the 3 specific plans and corridors that are within the city, the Downtown Specific Area Plan, and then the Mission Boulevard and former Route 238 corridor, we were able to satisfy the entire RHNA allocation through the use of units that are already assumed within those 3 plans or corridors. So you see the breakdowns here on your screen, that it's a little over 1,600 units in the Downtown Specific Plan, about 1,500 units in the Mission Boulevard corridor, and then 510 units in the former Route 238 corridor. So you'll see some other numbers here on your screen, but the big takeaway is that there is no rezoning that's needed in the city of Hayward to accommodate this RHNA, which is a huge feat. The city should be very proud that they don't have to take on any rezoning. It's very rare with this cycle that cities do not have to take on a rezoning program to accommodate at least some of their RHNA. With these numbers also, the city is able, there is a buffer. You'll see that there at the bottom, the unit surplus. HCD likes to see a buffer of anywhere from 5 to 10%. And that's really just in case a unit or a project comes in on a site that was, say, assumed for lower income development, and then it ends up being developed with moderate income units. So having that buffer allows the city to maintain their RHNA within the income categories that they have been assigned. So they make sure that they still have adequate sites to accomplish development of the total number of RHNA units that were assigned to them at the beginning of the planning period. Next slide. I will turn it back over to you, Leah.
Okay, thank you so much, Brenna. So, you know, there's so many vacant sites. I get calls on the planning counter all the time where people are, talking about a vacant building or a vacant site, and why don't we put housing there? And, often the conversation is like, there are a lot of opportunity sites in Hayward. And as Brenna pointed out, we're a lucky jurisdiction in that we can accommodate our projected housing need plus more. But the reason why the city selected the sites that are included in this RHNA is that there's, sort of a bunch of different criteria. One of them was we were combining this project with climate action plan and environmental justice. So we really wanted to be looking at furthering climate goals by prioritizing housing that was near transit, that was near services, that was near commercial businesses. And so we could invest in the infrastructure to get people biking and walking and really make that happen. So a lot of the sites are in areas where you're going to see those climate goals being addressed. We also look for sites that were between 1/2 acre and 10 acres in size. And this is HCD criteria. We prioritized vacant properties, but we also identified underutilized commercial properties that could be converted. And then we really wanted to look for any parcels that were owned by public agencies. The 238 parcels the city has control over, or BART, where we can partner with a public agency and try to push the lever on affordable housing, because that's where you can sometimes get a little bit more than a market rate or a privately owned parcel. So again, the site selection criteria really tried to further our climate goals. So as Brenna pointed out, there are approved and pending projects. I just wanted to give you a graphic sort of representation of that. They're shown here in the blue circles. They are located throughout the city, but you can see that they are located generally along the Mission Corridor and downtown, with a few outliers. There are a total of 28 pending and approved projects. One of those was Maple and Main, which was approved tonight. So that's shifting over in 11 days, hopefully, to our approved project list. 5 of the 28 projects are 100% affordable. 13 of the projects have an affordability component. So, they have an inclusionary component that they included, like the Maple and Main project. And then how many? And then 10 of the remaining projects consist solely of market rate units affordable to above moderate households. So that would be, those are projects that were approved prior to this most recent affordable housing update, which I believe occurred in about 2018. Here is an overview of our inventory, our sites inventory, and I'm going to drill down into the various areas because this is such a huge scale. But here you can see the downtown specific plan area. The sites that are vacant are in yellow. In orange, they are non-vacant. So that just means they're sort of like underutilized commercial or light industrial spaces, parking garages, or sometimes they're considered non-vacant. There are a total of 29 parcels and 1,600 units that would be located here. Here are the sites that were identified on the Mission Boulevard corridor area. There are a total of 15 parcels here, and about 1,526 units could be developed along here. And then here's our Route 238 corridor parcels. There's just 2 of them because, as you've seen and heard, I think over the past few years, we've really seen those 238 parcels developed. Parcel Group 3 with the 100% Eden, 100% affordable Eden project. Parcel Group 5 most recently. Parcel Group 8 was recently approved through the SB 35 density bonus project. That's 100% affordable development at the corner of Foothill and Grove. So those Parcel Group projects have really been developed over the last housing element cycle. We have a couple that we're going to anticipate in the next housing element cycle. So briefly, I just want to touch on something. Our site's capacity does have a 50% buffer. And it's important to note that this is just an exercise in showing HCD that we can accommodate the RHNA allocation. Development will likely occur not on these sites. And these sites may develop totally outside of our assumptions, because our assumptions are based on densities. And sometimes developers come in and they change zoning, or they come in with a different vision and a density bonus, and it's different than what our assumptions are. So this is our best shot in the dark. But what HCD wants to see is that we can actually accommodate them. It's also really important to point out that while the city's assumptions primarily rest on higher density development in specific areas, there will likely be additional incremental infill development in lower density neighborhoods throughout the city during this next 8-year cycle. This is due to relaxed state laws around accessory dwelling units. I think it's very likely we will see more than 300, but we wanted to be conservative based on trends over the past few years. And the recent implementation of Senate Bill 9, which allows for any single family parcel to be split into 2 lots and developed with a duplex on each lot, subject to minimum setback and other standards. That law went into effect on January 1st of this year. And we do anticipate, like ADUs, that in the next few years, we're going to see more of those. And what that's going to do is change the nature of single family neighborhoods. And it's just going to sort of incrementally intensify development everywhere. And that really may move the needle on increasing housing production. So the next part of tonight's presentation is around the housing plan. And this is a really important. HCD probably considers this, besides the sites inventory and showing you can accommodate the RHNA, they want to see what your plan is for the next 8 years to try and get this housing preserved, rehabilitated, and built. So the housing plan contains a set of goals, policies, actions, objectives, timeframes, and sets the responsible agency and funding source for the action. Our housing plan contains 6 goals, which are outlined here: preserve, conserve, and improve housing stock, assist in the development of affordable housing. I'm sort of moving clockwise here. Provide adequate sites, remove constraints on development, provide housing for persons with special needs, and then provide equal housing opportunities for all persons. That equal housing opportunities for all persons is sort of the core of all of this, which is the fair housing. And so while all of these little petals around the flower revolve around fair housing, the equal opportunities for all persons is the core of that fair housing plan. So briefly, some of the programs in our preserve, conserve, and improve existing housing are to have minor home repair programs. Those are grants to people, residential rental inspection programs. You know, that's our code enforcement officers going out and making sure housing is habitable and safe, and preservation of at-risk affordable housing. So that's our housing division monitoring any deed restricted housing where the covenants are coming up, and looking at helping developers continue those covenants beyond the 45-year or 55-year affordability restrictions. In our next goal of assisting in the development of affordable housing, what we're looking at is assistance to developers in various ways, you know, through pre-application plans, various incentives, updating our density bonus and our affordable/inclusionary housing ordinance, which I believe kicked off last week. And then partnering with the county to expand as much as possible and support them in that housing choice vouchers program. In providing adequate housing sites, what that refers to is our RHNA. So what the city planning division will do over the next 8 years is to monitor projects to ensure that we don't lose units that we've assumed would be developed. Again, that's the purpose of that buffer. So what this action does is it requires us to monitor those sites that we've identified. We are also talking about amending the ordinance to require replacement housing. So that's where if a demolition of like a fourplex was going to come in, new state law requires that the housing be replaced at the income of the people that have been living there. And so that would basically codify it. Right now it's state law, so it's already required, but it would codify it in the Hayward Municipal Code. It would we would also talk about doing by right approvals on reused housing sites. So in the next, I think there's only 4 sites in the downtown area that would have a by right approval, meaning like a sort of streamlined ministerial approval if they provided 20% affordable housing in the downtown area. There's adaptive reuse policy, so looking at flexible parking standards, for example, or more flexible building code standards for reusing old buildings to convert from commercial to residential. And then allowing a variety of housing types. So going through our code to say, you know, allow for transitional housing on church sites and other sort of more housing that could accommodate and help more people. So removing constraints on housing development, that includes creating a package of development incentives for developers so we can sort of hand it out to them. It includes programs for lot consolidation. So where there's a bunch of lots under ownership, creating the ability to do that. Expedited project review, and then monitoring and expanding our ADU and duplexes and lot split. That's the SB9 project I was talking about earlier. So our action around this is monitoring it and then seeing where in the city these are being developed and then targeting outreach in areas where maybe they're not being developed, or partnering with county and state or federal grant programs to ensure that you know, different households have access to be able to improve their properties in this way. Housing for persons with special needs really prioritizes funding for individuals that are homeless, for large families, for people that have disabilities, for people who are, you know, let's see, what else would it be? Seniors. So prioritizing funding, when we do NOFAs, funding allocations, having points in there for people that are providing housing to special needs for developers, providing financial support to organizations that provide services to people, transitional services, maybe foster youth transitioning out of foster care system, for example. And then developing a shallow rent subsidy program for extremely low income households. And so this would be paid through ARPA funding, which is like the American relief, it's like COVID money, and setting aside a fund for people that are just right at the edge of being able to not pay their rent and helping them stay in there a little bit longer and to find support. And then finally, this program includes expanding community outreach and education, exploring with the clerk's office, you know, different languages, making sure that we're having our meetings in different areas and accessible to all. And then finally, our equal housing actions include foreclosure prevention, counseling, fair housing services, and those include like that same education and outreach, rent stabilization and tenant protections, a relocation assistance program, and then updating the consolidated plan, which is prepared by the Housing Division to strengthen place-based strategies around housing. So briefly, the timeline, you know, so as I said, we started last summer. Right now we're in summer of 2022. We're over in the purple. We're between spring and summer. We're still drafting the housing element. We're pretty close though to publishing and then submitting the draft to HCD. Roughly our plan is to release the draft housing element in July. It will be released for a 30-day public review. Once we, and we'll hold a city council work session and a community work session during that time. And then we will, you know, take a look at all the comments we received, update the housing element based on those comments and submit to HCD sometime in August. They have 90 days to review our draft housing element before they give us comments. And then we will get their comments back hopefully in November or sooner than that. And then we will update our housing element and get it ready for public hearings. During that 90 days, we will be conducting environmental analysis, which is required for any general plan amendments, as well as updating our safety element and drafting the environmental justice element and getting all those ready to come together for public hearings in winter of 2022 and early 2023. And it's important to note that community engagement will continue to roll through this whole project all the way through adoption and through the implementation of the next 8 years of this plan. So this is sort of how to get involved. We have our Hayward Housing and Climate Update website. And then here is our cover. It is coming soon in July of 2022. So that concludes the presentation, and I'd love to open it up to questions.
Thank you very much, Leah. Appreciate that very comprehensive overview and all the work that went into it. I will we'll start with commissioner discussion, and then we'll open up to public comment after the fact. So start with Commissioner Goldstein.
Thank you, Chair. Leah, Leah, as always, you've done a stellar job. I've got a couple of questions for you. In the identification of the available units, are about how many of those are owned by the City of Hayward or some other municipal agency?
That's a good question. For sure, we'll pick how transparcels are, and then the BART parcels are. We've identified both the South Hayward and downtown. And then there's some city-owned parking garages. I can't, off the top of my head, I'm gonna say downtown, maybe like 10 between BART and the city. And then the Caltrans parcels are a couple more, and then South Hayward. I would say out of all of the parcels, maybe 15.
Okay, thank you for that. Has it been explored at all, having those 15 properties and maybe some of the others, rather than selling the land to developers, actually holding the land in some kind of trust so that basically it stays in our possession, but dramatically lowers the cost of housing development? Has that been explored at all?
So I do believe that's how BART handles it. BART holds the land and they do leases to developers. The city hasn't done that in the past, but that is something we could explore. You know, I could bring back to the city manager. It hasn't been explored, at least for city properties yet. Okay, good. I would ask that you make note of that so that it can at least be discussed by city council. Mm-hmm. Very good. In my conversations with BART board director Liz Ames today, she pointed out to me that there is a lack of median priced properties. And I saw on your table that there was, obviously, there was a number of units there designated for medium. But what was surprising to me, and it goes contrary to what we've heard in prior reports, Liz was saying that a report had been completed fairly recently. She has it available. I can reach out to her and get it and forward it to you. In fact, I plan to do that. If I forget, you can remind me. But what was unusual was we've been told that, especially for transit-oriented development, that we want a high mix of low and very low income units, because in theory, those were folks that would make use of BART in particular. And in fact, the report that came out said that they're more likely to be the median income folks that will use that. Is that something that I'm telling you, is that new information for you, or is that something that you've already thought about, heard about, and included in the report? Our report doesn't analyze BART usage. That might be something that BART put together or partnered with, you know, some think tank, maybe in the Bay Area, to put together. We could definitely look into that. But what I would say is generally, we prioritize creating mixed income communities. That's the ideal, right? Is to create a community that has a mix of incomes. You need the 100% affordable projects in order to get those RENA numbers, because as you saw, you know, the conversation around 16 of the X number of units is affordable. That's like a drop in the bucket, right? So you do need those 100% affordable projects to get you over the line, and we've been I think we are unique. Hayward is unique in that we have gotten a few of those 100% affordable projects built. And I don't think you see that everywhere in the Bay Area. But the goal is to have mixed income. But I can look for the report and we can see how it might influence some of the actions or policies.
Yeah, good. Thank you for that. So my recollection is, and my memory is going back a few years on this topic now, that we decided on the inclusionary mixed housing because, we felt that it provided a greater opportunity for people to benefit the same in terms of their access to public safety, fresh food, shopping opportunities, transportation, et cetera. And so that was one of the reasons why we pushed so hard years ago, and now we're seeing the fruits of our effort in mixed housing. And then also that it would be built faster because those market rate units and mixed use developments were coming to, actually making it through planning, getting the approvals and permits and getting built versus saving up for that day when we could bring in a low-income housing developer. And we've got some great ones. I mean, the projects that we've done here in Hayward, you and your team have done an excellent job of bringing them in and getting them built. So I want you to know I respect what you've done, but just reminding us all that those developments come more slowly. And so I definitely respect that we need to look at those 100% low-income housing units, but just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that getting them built sooner or faster benefits everybody. So those mixed-use developments, we should definitely not lose sight of that. Anyway, that concludes my comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Goldstein. Commissioner Stevens?
Thank you. So I just want to point out that 2 weeks ago, we heard folks that lived in the community next to the development that we just reviewed and approved. They were very concerned about the density and scale of the proposed project. Of course, not much can be done about that because the specific plan, the downtown specific plan, was approved. So I would just suggest to the public that here is the opportunity. As this moves forward, this is going to reinforce and change the context of the city. We have allowed a lot of our local controls to be lost to the state, and the state is dictating development conditions to us. And I fear that as the years progress, there's going to be a lot of frustrated people that see these things moving forward because they're going to see how their communities change. So I would just encourage everybody to start educating themselves and become involved in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. Commissioner Roche.
Thank you. And thank you, Leah. I was so impressed by the creativity of which you reached out to the community. It was really cool to see. And obviously you were able to, collect a lot of information that way. So that's so cool. So my question has to do with the population, the low-income population that's at risk of being unhoused. What would the housing element include, like what the ongoing sort of outreach mechanism would be? Just because so often I think these things happen quietly because people are either ashamed or, nobody's watching. And so I'm just wondering what that piece would be. And is that something in the element, or is that, I don't know, a community services thing later?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the housing element is all of housing, right? And the actions that are in here tie to work the community services division is doing, work that the housing division is doing. You'll see mentions of the displacement study, of the Let's House Hayward plan, of the navigation center, of, I think the shallow rent subsidy program I brought up is going to be a new one. But I think that the education and outreach component is really where we're making every effort, and housing has done incredible work in the past year or two, really getting out there into the community and letting people know. So I think it's a combination of like education and outreach about letting people know about the programs that do exist. And that is included in the housing element. Like we commit to monthly workshops in English and Spanish. We commit to, you know what I mean? And then it's a matter of like, if we see in a year, the housing element really does also contain elements where we can pivot, right? So if housing division staff is like, we're not reaching people, we're not, you know, there's ability to pivot and say, how can we change this to really reach people? So that's definitely included in the housing element, that education and outreach component.
Okay, great. Yeah, you're right. Because I think we talked a little bit about this too at some of the environmental justice work too. You know, the idea of maybe creating like having like movie nights for families, but with a side of housing education, you know, like creating sort of an event that actually is the, you know, to bring people out. That's the thing that brings people out, not the meeting on housing, you know, but then you provide the housing on the side. Because I think we talked about that, you know, I have found that to be successful. So thank you, Leah. And this was really interesting tonight, and really glad to see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Roche. Commissioner Lowe?
Thank you. And thank you, Leah. That was really, really well done. I understood a lot better from when I read all the materials, and then you just made it even clearer. So one of the things that I wanted a little bit more information on was the H3 preservation of at-risk affordable housing. I think it might piggyback a little bit off of what Commissioner Roche said. Maybe it's just the educational piece that it happens, but it said that the city would assist property owners to maintain the affordability of certain units. And I just wanted a little bit more detail of how that happens.
I was just pulling it up. I get lost in this plan all the time. I'm like, where are we? Okay, so what that specifically talks about is, and I mentioned it, I kind of skimmed over it, but this, in the 8-year cycle, what happens is affordable housing developments that received money 45 to 55 years ago or were built, sometimes they're going to term out, their covenants are going to expire. That doesn't, let me just pause to say, our inclusionary housing ordinance, they're affordable in perpetuity. So that's very unique and really, really great about the city's affordable housing ordinance and our housing division staff having the foresight to do that. But if for like tax credit allocations, if they received federal grant monies from HUD in order to build these units or significantly rehabilitate them, and they had to record covenants on them for a certain number of years, within this 8-year cycle, some of them are going to come up, meaning they can convert to market rate. So our housing division staff with support from planning will monitor those housing developments. We'll go to the owners and say to them, do you want to apply or partner for money, some grant money, some tax credit monies to upgrade them, maybe put, you know, EV chargers in there and solar panels and do a bunch of upgrades. And then if they apply for that money and they receive that money and do those upgrades, we can extend those affordability covenants on those units. So that's really, it's monitoring those at-risk units and then positioning those owners to understand, you know, what they can apply for and how to extend those affordability.
And about how many of those do you anticipate coming up within that time frame?
It's in here, and it's 1, 2, 3, 5. I don't know how many units are in each of those developments, but we anticipate that 5 will come up in the next 8-year cycle.
And so are you already working with the developers? Do you work with them ahead of time, or do you wait until, what's the process?
That's a good question. It's not my area as a planner, but typically the responsible agency is the city manager's office in support with development services, and the funds that are, you know, we use our housing choice vouchers, federal and state funds, home funds, and then our trust fund money that comes from our inclusionary, like for the developments that fee out and don't provide the units, like we use those trust funds to do that stuff. My understanding, Christina Morales, who I'm sure you know, like she's on top of it, her staff, I would say that they probably get an alert about a year in advance, and that's when they go to those developers and start talking to them. But the actual process, I'm not completely sure about.
Okay, thank you. Again, really great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Loke. Let's see, Commissioner Bonilla.
Thank you so much. I just have a few quick questions, Leah, but I do agree you did a great job with these presentations, as you usually do. Okay, so the first thing I was wondering is, just for clarity, what does it mean to be cost burdened? So when we say 50% of renters are cost burdened, what does that actually mean?
So it's a really specific definition, and you can dig into all these weeds when you get your housing needs assessment, which is very long. So being officially cost burdened is that somebody pays more than 30% of their income on housing. So, you know, somebody that over the course of, that makes $100,000 a year pays more than $30,000 towards housing. And it's really important to note that that's not just rent or your mortgage, that includes utilities, that includes all of your housing costs bundled up. So when, you know, we restrict rents, they take that into account when they're doing that 30% calculation, but it's considered to be 30%. And Hayward is not, in fact, I think there's probably other communities where they have higher rent burden. You know, people pay much more than, you know, 30% for their income.
Got it. That makes sense.
I mean, for their housing.
Just wondering, because, you know, 50% is quite a lot, and ownership is quite a lot too. So, you know, as we look at these kind of arena numbers and our forecast, what's our level of confidence that we're actually going to be able to reach those numbers over the next 8 years? Because I mean, it all sounds good, but I'm like, is it really like?
Well, the thing is, and I think we put this in the staff report, and it's really important to remember that the city doesn't have to build these units. We have to plan for them. And so the developers build the units. What we're showing is that the city of Hayward can accommodate our arena. There are a lot of jurisdictions out there that can't. Their densities are way too low. So they're gonna have to rezone to accommodate the arena. Now, they may rezone and never build. We don't know what's gonna happen in 2 years. Think about 2 years ago, you know, like it was crazy. So I think that what's important, I think that Hayward has a good, you know, if you look at any jurisdiction, I don't know one of them. There's probably one jurisdiction out there that's hit their arena, but like it is hard and most don't. And there's a lot of factors, and you'll read the whole constraints section of the housing element that talks about, you know, it's just the costs of housing, the process, it's really expensive to build. So do I think it's likely? I think it's possible. We're showing that it's possible, but is it likely? I don't know.
With all of us kind of pushing and rowing in the same direction, we have to all keep in mind when we're making decisions that there's a need in our community to build these kinds of housing. And enough is obviously never enough, because what we see is that there's been a 9% increase with an 18% population growth. So we have to find a way as a city and as a team to continue to row in the same direction, to be aggressive in the decisions we're making, and be deliberate in order to keep pace with our community, in order to make sure that we're also making decisions that are in the best interest of our community. Because when I looked at these arena allocations, it's like 46%, if we just were to do the math, you know, is above $170,000 per household. The rest of this is under 170 per household. So when you just think about that, it's like there's a need for us to be very intentional about the mix of housing that we're building, and making sure that we're building mixed, inclusive, incomed communities. But Leah, the other question that I had related to this is, this doesn't really talk about the housing mix. Like, you know, we talked about today, like, you know, inclusionary owner occupied housing is, you know, like cream of the cream, right? This doesn't really say if it's going to be, you know, rent versus owner, like, or are these targets that specific?
In the appendix, use attachment 2. You can go in there and really dig. It's a big spreadsheet, and what HCD assumes is that if you're saying that it's going to be for lower income, that it's going to be an apartment, and the tenure is rentals. That if it's going to be higher density, so you know, anything from like or single family homes or townhomes are going to be moderate or above moderate. So the tenure would be ownership. it's complete assumptions. I mean, as we know, condominiums get built and they're high density and people buy them, and there's, townhomes and single family homes that rent. But generally what HCD says, because again, this is all guesses, is that higher density is rental, lower density is ownership. And it is in the giant spreadsheet.
Got it. Well, thank you so much, Lee. Those are all my questions for now.
Thank you, Commissioner Buddy. I had some of the same questions, so appreciate you asking them. I think at this point, we will open up for public comment. Ms. Madakash, can you open up public comment and let us know if there's anyone online that would like to speak on this topic?
I do not see any speakers on this topic.
All right, and...
Oh, I apologize. Someone just raised their hand. We have Ms. Ro Aguilar.
Nick of time. All right, Ms. Aguilar, if you want to go ahead and speak, please. If you can announce yourself and then provide your comment. Thank you.
Give me just a moment.
One moment. Yep, we'll set up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, thank you. I didn't even think I was going to get a chance to speak, so I really appreciate that.
Of course.
First of all, I want to say this was a great presentation. I'm always very interested in these housing presentations. Secondly, I want to say on the RENA, I think Commissioner Bonilla, I follow some of your concerns. What is the percentage of rental versus ownership on these totals? Because we all know if it's all rental, that is not going to, even if it's inclusionary rental like we had today, that is not the best path to promoting and encouraging people, lower income people into the middle class. We all think about how did our families get into the middle class? The majority is home ownership. And if we want to do that, if that's one of our values, if we want to make up for past inequities, we've got to look at that figure and say, how are we going to get these low income folks to own a house, make it affordable, get them into the middle class? That's one question. The second one is, I really question the BART study. I think you should look at that closely. Commissioner Stevens, was it Stevens or Sullivan? I don't remember. Anyway, and then the final thing, Commissioner Stevens, I want to bring your attention to the fact that loss of control to the state on housing is because the local communities failed royally and miserably to provide housing for their residents. So every time you say we're losing control to the state, you should finish that sentence by saying, because the local municipalities failed to provide affordable housing for their residents, because that is the reason. And we are in this crisis today because of that situation. You are going to have frustrated people. You are going to have people who are angry because we're putting low-income housing in. But that is our responsibility, our duty, our value. And I think you need to take ownership of that. I think we all need to take ownership of that. And that is why I am here trying my best to put this forward, to advocate for low-income housing, inclusionary, owner-occupied housing. And I am so glad that we have this opportunity now when we're revising the affordable housing ordinance. So please, please don't blame the state, blame ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aguilar. It does not appear that we have any additional attendees raising their hand. Is that correct, Ms.?
Correct. There
Perfect.
are no additional.
Perfect. And barring anyone in the room appearing to provide comment, we'll close public comment on this topic. Just wanted to thank Leah for the presentation. Obviously, you are unpacking a complex subject, and the presentation was very helpful for me as well, as I think the rest of the commissioners found. So thank you for that work. And looking ahead, we will close out item 2. And we'll move on to our third item on the agenda, approval of the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting from May 26, 2022. Do I have any motion?
I'll move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Goldstein, seconded by Commissioner Stevens. Ms. Monaconcha, if you can call for the roll.
Commissioner Goldstein?
Aye.
Commissioner Bonilla Jr.?
I abstain.
Commissioner Roach?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Lowe?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ali Sullivan?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, the motion passes. We've approved the minutes. All right, that takes us to the tail end of the meeting tonight. Let's see, for commission reports, do we have any updates from city staff? Jeremy?
Yeah, good evening, commissioners and members of the public. I just wanted to give a little promotion here to one of the projects another one of these amazing projects that we're working on. You got a report out from Leah on the housing element work, which we're doing citywide, but there's also the Objective Standards project that we are also working on, and I wanted to promote. We have a couple of wonderful workshops that we are going to be embarking on starting this weekend over both on Saturday, June 25th and Monday, June 27th. City staff and the Hayward Residential Design Study Team, which is the new name for Objective Standards, is going to be leading a series of 5 workshops in various Hayward neighborhoods. The purpose of each of these workshops is to allow the community members to point out features of their neighborhood that they like and things that they don't like, as well as share ideas about the design and the future of housing in the city of Hayward. We will have design professionals that will also be attending those workshops as part from our consultant team, and they will also be. We will also have staff available to facilitate conversations as well as translation from Spanish, which will also be available. Obviously, any member of our commission is welcome to attend, but also members of our public are welcome and encouraged to attend to also participate in these workshops. There is also several flyers and a survey that's available in English, Spanish, and Mandarin. There is an online survey that will provide additional opportunities for input. But if you have any questions or you're interested in the workshop, please contact the planning division. We have several staff members that are also going to be participating in that. But this is really a really wonderful opportunity to not only get familiar with your own neighborhood, but also branch out and experience the character of other neighborhoods and what makes those neighborhoods so unique and special, and provide an opportunity to actually be a part of this process as we start to develop our objective standards. So I had to give a little plug for that. We have some great work coming online, and would encourage the community to participate if they're available this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. And Jeremy, can you confirm our next commission meeting will be a couple weeks from now, correct? I think we have a little break.
The next Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for July 14th. That is Thursday. We do have, at this time, we do have one item that is scheduled for that meeting. There is a second meeting also in July. Currently, we have nothing on the agenda for that evening, for that meeting, but stay tuned. It's still a month away, and there may be new opportunities to add something at the last minute, but the next meeting is July 14th.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, commissioner announcements. Do we have any announcements from my fellow commissioners? And my computer just turned off. It looks like we have anyone on our Zoom. Commissioner Roche, Commissioner Bonilla, Commissioner Lowe. I don't see anyone raising their hands. Commissioner Goldstein, please.
I'll try to be brief. So emergency communications is that field that is staffed by volunteers to provide communications down to the neighborhoods when big disasters happen. This weekend, on Saturday, June 25th, I got to get my month straight, right? June 25th, from about noon until Sunday, about 2 p.m., you may find people with antennas raised high in the air and possibly wires across them to hold the antennas in place, feel free to approach them if you see them and just ask what's going on. What do you do here? And they may invite you in and explain what emergency communications is all about. Those of you who happen to be in the area of the San Leandro Marina, I hope you'll stop by and see my team at work. Hopefully I'll be there. I plan to be there for most of the day. So if you do get an opportunity, please stop by and we'll show you what emergency communications is all about and how it can help you survive and recover from a disaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Goldstein. I know that's a subject that you are passionate about, so appreciate you providing that update. Commissioner Stevens, any updates? Seeing none? Perfect. Well, this was my first evening chairing a planning commission meeting, so I wanted to thank city staff for their support. Hopefully I didn't make too many mistakes, and it looks like we have one other comment from Ms. Monakosh.
I believe Commissioner Bonilla Jr. has his hand up.
Oh, I was just going to say happy Pride to everybody. It's Pride Month. Happy Pride, everybody.
Happy Pride.
And Commissioner Lowe as well.
Perfect. Please, Commissioner Lowe.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say that I just wanted to commend the city council members and staff who planned the Juneteenth celebration on Saturday. It was really, really well attended, and it was a wonderful event. So I just want to say that that was great, and I hope that that continues every year.
Absolutely. Agree.
Wonderful. Well, we are going to call the meeting adjourned at 9 p.m. And seeing as I failed to hit the gavel to open up the meeting, we'll go ahead and close the meeting at 9 o'clock. Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Recording stopped.